on, guys? My name is Brandon, and welcome to Audio Addiction, where you can find the latest album reviews, you can find our band interviews, and you can find live video of the concerts that we get. Issues and Falling in Reverse, their co-headliner is coming up. I'm really excited for that, so let me know in the comments if you'd like me to get video of both Issues, and Danger Kids is also on this tour as well, so I'd love to get video of them. So let me know in the comments if you'd like me to get their set list. I'm also excited for Motionless and White. I think they do a pretty good job live as well. So I'm excited to see that band. Also, we made new merch. So check the description. We have a link to our new web store. So definitely go check that out if you feel so inclined. It would mean a lot. And as well as make sure to hit that subscribe button if you enjoy what we do. Certainly goes a long way, and we appreciate your support, as I said earlier. But I'm getting away from myself. Tonight, we're going to be talking about Vesta Collide's new record, New Obsession. So, I found out about this band, ironically enough. They were touring with my good friends in Villain of the Story. They did a co-headliner back in December. I was gonna say January, but we're still in January. But they did it last month, and they came to my state, New Jersey, and they both did a killer job. Probably the next bigger kind of bands, and I'm excited to see what both of those bands do in the future. But Vesta Collide's album was coming out very soon at that time, and I wanted to check it out. And obviously, I checked out The Witching Hour, or not The Witching Hour, Witching Hour, and I Can't Sleep, I think was out at the time. But I definitely dug what they did. It reminds me a lot of like nostalgic Attack Attack, like I would say Someday Came Suddenly, and like a little bit of I would say I would say more their self-titled than Someday Came Suddenly. However, their screamer kind of reminds me, in terms of his screams, reminds me a lot of Austin Carlisle, and it also reminds me a lot of like nostalgic Devil Wears Prada, like Plagues and Roots Above, Branches Below. It definitely reminds me of that without a doubt, and it also reminds me of some smaller bands. Well, Bless the Fall isn't really a smaller band, but they definitely remind me of Bless the Fall as well in some tracks, as well as one of my favorite bands, Whether I. They broke up a little bit of time ago, but they did an awesome job, and they kind of remind me a lot of them. So I appreciate that Vesta is kind of taking that Whether I slot, because I've really been missing a band like this in my arsenal, so it's cool to check out this album. So I think you guys should definitely check it out. It came out yesterday, Friday, January 20th, so definitely go pick it up if you can. And they're also on tour with Curses, and they're hitting the West Coast, and then I think they also got announced for support for the Alesana tour on the West Coast as well, so definitely go check them out. It's a band you don't want to miss out on. I think they're definitely going to be big this year in 2017. So let me get into the tracks. So the first one is, like I mentioned, Witching Hour. This was the first single that they released, and it also starts off the record. And I think they picked a really strategic song to put as a single, as well as a good track to obviously start the record with. So it definitely, the themes that are in this track are synonymous throughout this whole album. I would definitely say there's a heavy influence of like piano and like strings and kind of like orchestral sort of instruments, very reminiscent of, like I said, Devil Wears Prada's Plagues, Roots Above, Branches Below. I'm sure that that had to have been something that they were trying to kind of mock, in a sense, not in a bad way, but kind of to pay homage to Devil Wears Prada, and it definitely has that sort of sound to them. So really dig this band a lot. I dig this track a lot, especially being the single. I think it just has this sort of like catchiness to it, but as well as something refreshing and new about it. So definitely enjoyed this first track, and I think you guys will like this one as well. So definitely go check that one out. So the second track off the record is Empty Bodies. This one is kind of carrying in the same vein as The Witching Hour, or not I keep saying the witching hour, but I'm just gonna go with it. But it definitely reminds me a lot of, again, Devil Wears Prada and that sort of era of music, as well as it reminds me a little bit of Weather Eye as well, because I know they used a little bit of orchestral kind of sounds as well. But it's got this really great lead part. I don't know who does the leads in this band, but I really enjoyed the lead sort of guitar parts throughout this whole track. I think it definitely separates it from the Witching Hour, but it also makes it very, I would say, sonically, it reminds me a lot of the Witching Hour. So I think they really did a great job of that, having that balance of where it kind of sounds similar, but is also different at the same time. So really enjoyed this track. I would definitely say this one's one of my favorite. I love the clean vocalist, and I like the playoff between the two. I definitely like throughout this whole record they kind of did play off of each other, and there are some tracks that feature more screams, and there are some tracks that features more cleans. So I think there's a nice balance between that, and I think they found a really good mix. Scream wise, I really enjoy it as well. It definitely reminds me of Austin Carlisle. It reminds me of Mike Haranka from obviously Devil Wears Prada. I feel like they have a very similar sound. I wouldn't say it's exactly like Mike, especially during that era, because he was just on another level, at least in my opinion. But it sounds really close, and I think he kind of, I would say he kind of forms more in that like mid level slash like high level screams. He does do a lot of lows, which is great throughout this record. So I'm excited to share kind of the rest of the tracks with you. So track number three is I Can't Sleep. Like I mentioned, this was the second single that they released, and it definitely has this new metal sort of vibe to it, especially sort of the intro guitar parts, and just throughout the record. I mean, throughout this track as well. I would say, I would say, scream wise, this is by far the one of the best tracks, if not the best tracks off the record. Scream wise, he does some super guttural kind of lows, and just the clean vocals, you know, pay compliment to the screams, and I like that he kind of echoes what he does in screams as well. I think that's a really cool thing, and a lot of bands don't do too much of that. So I really enjoyed that part, and I just enjoyed the whole structure of the track. I think it again sonically reminds me a lot of new metal and like metalcore mixed together. So new core, that's what I'm gonna call it. So I really enjoyed this track. I think it's another really strategic single that they picked. I think it's definitely kind of like the black sheep of this album. It definitely doesn't. There aren't a track that you would get this confused with. It definitely has its own merit. It has its own weight to it. So really enjoyed I Can't Sleep. So the fourth track is Pretend. I would definitely say this one's my favorite off the record. There's quite a few, but this one in particular is one of my favorites. I like that it features more of the clean vocalist. I think they did. I think the clean vocalist, Jacob, you do an awesome job, man. I love it. And I think the guitar work mixed with the clean vocals and stuff. It doesn't really have too much screams. The screamer kind of takes a back seat in this track, but I don't really mind at all because I really like how the song carries with the clean vocalist, and I think that shows really good restraint in terms of the band. It's not like back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I feel like that would kind of get tedious, and I like that. Some songs where the screamer takes the lead, and there's some part songs where the clean vocalist takes the lead. So I definitely think that is something that larger bands do, and I think it's something that they do very well as well. So I would definitely suggest checking out Pretend. So the next track is called The Lights. This one reminds me a lot of like Awakening era of Bless the Fall, and the one with the bloody face, almost very reminiscent of their album cover. I really enjoyed this one as well. Again, it kind of reminds me of an amalgamation of um, Bless the Fall and Devil Wears Prada. So like if Devil Wears Prada and Bless the Fall had a baby and they made a track, this would be the track without a doubt. It just has this sort of fast pacedness to it, but it also has really great layering with the synths and like the strings and stuff like that. I feel like that's a great mix. I definitely would say that the screamer takes more of the lead, whereas the clean vocalist does do some clean parts, but it's less so I like that a lot. Again, I've already mentioned it, but I like the playoff between them two. Um, Track number 6 is great too. I think that it's a great, again, midway point through the record. Um, in my opinion, a lot of albums kind of hit their stale point at 6, or depending upon how long the album is. A lot of albums get kind of stale towards the middle. It's almost as if it's like the cop out sort of thing. However, um, I think it's a nice change of pace. Away from here is a really nice change of pace. I think it's definitely more of a slower track. Obviously, it focuses more of the instrumental pieces like guitars, the like orchestral pieces like piano and like strings and stuff of that nature. And it takes more focus on the clean vocalist as opposed to the screamer. The screamer does have some parts, but that's towards the end of the track. But I think this is again a nice icebreaker, kind of like something that's different in the middle of the record, and it doesn't get you like, because all tracks from 1 to 5 are like 0 to 100, and like when you get to 6 you're kind of like cruising, you're feeling it, it's going great. And I think it's a great kind of track, and it's definitely one of my favorites because it's something that when I was listening to the album a few times, it's a track that I found kind of rest in, if that makes sense. It definitely holds 1 through 5 very well, and then it gets you kind of prepared for the latter half of the record. So I think it's a great tipping point and a great sort of transitional track for this record. So we'll move on to track number 7, which is Hallucination. This, without a doubt, is one of my favorites as well, along with Pretend and Away From Here. I think this one sonically is more, I would say, kind of hard rock based. It almost reminds me of the same direction that Bring Me the Horizon took on That's the Spirit. It's not as scream driven. While there are screams, it's again not scream driven. I love the guitar work on this one. I would say it reminds me a lot of like Too Close to Touch. A lot like Weather Eye. I would say like very close to Weather Eye. I actually thought it was a Weather Eye track when I was first listening to it. I thought it maybe like hit shuffle on accident, but I really enjoyed this one a lot. I think it's definitely a curveball, and I think that this is what makes this album great, is that there's a lot of tracks that I'm like, whoa, that was a really good track. I didn't expect that. Like, so um definitely a really good track and one to check out. So we'll move on to track number 8, which is Waste Away. We're getting back into the heavy. This one, like 5, reminds me a lot of Devil Wears Prada and Bless the Fall. It has that same sort of like, I don't know. There's this certain formula behind like Devil Wears Prada and a Bless the Fall track, and they kind of, I would say, almost crack the code on it. It has this again, this Bless the Fall sort of Devil Wears Prada baby kind of feel to it. Um, Scream wise, excellent. I think this again, along with I Can't Sleep, Scream wise is one of my favorites off the record without a doubt, and I think it's another heavy, brutal track. And I like that they're pacing it very well. It's not heavy, 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 and then like a slow track, and then more heavy tracks, and then I feel like they're very pacing it very well in terms of you're gonna know when a heavy track's coming up, and that's great. So we'll move on to track number 9, which is Monster Blood. I think this one is also another great track. I think it's another heavy track, kind of reminiscent of Mice and Men. I would say probably like Flood era. Definitely it's almost like a nostalgia trip for me, almost in terms of just albums that I love, and I'm like, wow, that sounds really great, and it almost reminds me of that sort of era of music. So this one's another great track. I would definitely put it in one of my favorites. It has a kind of like OG Loco sort of vibe to it, and along with the screams and the cleans, it kind of is reminiscent of that. I think their clean vocalist reminds me a lot of Johnny Frank from Attack Attack in that regard, especially in that era. Um, Definitely reminds me a lot of that. So if you enjoyed Johnny Frank from that era, this one again right up your alley. Track number 10, Time Won't Keep What's Left of Us. I think this is again another curveball, like track number 6, Away From Me, Away From Here. I was gonna say Away From Me, but I did. Um, yeah, I think this one definitely reminds me a lot of that one in terms of just the slowness. I think it's more of a clean vocalist driven track. And again, I'm really liking the pacing of it. It's not like, again, a bunch of heavy tracks and then a soft track. They're really elaborately playing this well, and that's what I really enjoy about this band. And also, I think it shows a lot of maturity as a band. If you're able to concoct an album where it's not going to get tiring and it's not going to get drawn out or anything, I think that's what makes an album great, and this is no exception. The guitar work on this track is, I would say, some of my favorite off the record, without a doubt. Again, they kind of went more of a softer kind of hard rock sound. Definitely enjoy this one. It's got some more ambient sort of feel, which I would love to see more of in the next album. Like, they have a lot of like delay guitar. There's a good amount of leads. The clean vocalist kind of pairs well with that whole kind of, I would say, like ambient sort of vibes to it. So definitely one of my favorites as well. And then lastly is Faithless Tongue. I think this is a great way to round out the record. And also, I think it's a great way to kind of tie up the rest of the record and what you can expect from it. Obviously, what you listen to. It's got some really heavy parts, but the clean vocalist and the screamer pair very well again, as used per usual. And I think that they kind of found that right balance between there's enough clean vocalists, there's enough screams, and then instrumentally it holds very well together. I would say again, some of my favorite riffs are on this track as well, and I would consider this to be one of my favorites also. So my pros and cons on this record, I love that there is, I would say, variety in terms of metalcore variety. There are different kind of, I would quote unquote, styles of metalcore on this album, without a doubt. I think it's just a nice, almost nostalgic trip to me. If you've been listening to it for a while, or metalcore for a while, this kind of has that nostalgic trip sort of feel to it. So really enjoyed this one a lot, just this whole album in general. I think they did a really spot on job. I also feel like they did an awesome job of kind of elaborately planning out the tracks where the listener wouldn't get tired of listening to the album, and kind of made it so that you want to listen to it again. You want to pick out different things from the album that you didn't pick up from before. So that's kudos to them. They did an excellent job on that. And I think it's a really good record for just being their first record. If they keep putting on spot on records like this, I definitely think they'll be huge this year and possibly even next year, without a doubt, just because they kind of have that nostalgic sort of vibe to them. So if you get the chance and you are out on the West Coast, definitely go check them out. I think they are definitely worth your time. And some cons for this record, I would definitely like to see maybe a little bit more cleans, and that's putting it very lightly. I really can't say anything bad about this record. I would definitely put that up, put it up in my albums of the year already. I think this one's just one that you will want to jam all the time, especially if you want that kind of fix, that metalcore fix. That I think this is just great. So my overall rating for this record, I'm gonna give it a 9.1 out of 10. I think this is a spot on record. I think just instrumentally, vocally, layer wise, it sounds very great. On top of that, it just reminds me a lot of nostalgic bands that I have grown to love in this genre. So, if you do like this album, definitely go pick it up. Go support these guys. If you go see them on tour, definitely go check them out. They are really awesome guys, and I'm excited to see what these guys do next. So, if you enjoy my review, let me know in the comments. Let me know if you checked out Vesta Collide. Let me know your thoughts on the new record. And if you, like I said, if you enjoy what I do, make sure to hit that subscribe button. Also, make sure to hit that like button as well. And if you enjoyed it enough, please share it. That'd be amazing. And thank you guys for all your support. Like I said, we have new merch at our store, so definitely go pick that up if you support and enjoy what we do. It would certainly mean a lot to everyone, and I couldn't be more grateful for the opportunities that I get for this channel. So thank you guys for checking out the review. My name is Brandon, and we'll be talking with you soon. Peace. Hey guys, hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. Of course, if you enjoy what we do, make sure to go check out the other series we do. We do album reviews, we do band interviews, and we do live videos, so definitely go check that out. Hit that subscribe button. It really helps out our channel, helps us grow. Make sure to hit that like button as well. Go follow us on social media. That's all down below. We try to keep that as updated as possible. We also made a new website where we'll be posting photos of upcoming concerts and stuff like that, which you can go check out at audioaddictionmedia.com and come get your fix with us, guys. Talk to you later. Deuces.